Hey, everyone. Kind of far away here.
Are we?
You know?
Yeah.
We'll lean in.
Well, what's up, you guys? First of all, mic check. There we go.
Good.
We get the after lunch slot, so we'll try to be engaging to wake y'all up. I also am armed with a clicker, which I think is going to advance us through slides. Let's test it. Oh my gosh, it works. Look at that. So first of all, thank you. It's super exciting to be here. I used to live in Los Angeles, and I enjoyed my oat milk latte this morning and some super healthy lunch, so it's good to be back amongst some LA crew here. So we talked a lot about AI and data today, and so what Greg and I wanted to talk about a little bit more is we're also all here to sell stuff online, ultimately, for the most part, right? There's some of us have stores, but like for the most part, we're trying to drive sales and traffic through our web store. And so like, how does all that relate to all of the apps that we have? Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, we're all already able to do product searches online. And so I first wanted to start, if I can tee up a question for Greg, is tell us how, so if I'm in Gemini and I'm doing a search for some new shoes, as an example, like how is Gemini leveraging information it can scrape from your website, maybe data that lives in Google Shopping and Google Merchant Center, potentially even other channels like my social media. Talk to us about like how is Gemini coming up with those results as an example?
Yeah, fantastic question. I would say, you know, the most important thing is that Gemini is leveraging data across like all of our platforms that Google has, right? So we have, I think at this point, 9 platforms of over 1 billion users. And with that, we're able to tap into that user data to like really get some rich data signals around, you know, what individuals are searching for, where they are, what devices they're using, you know, what they're watching on YouTube, et cetera. And with those signals combined with the first-party data, then we can get really, really specific with targeting them with the right products when users or consumers are doing these searches. But really, that key point to make AI work for your business is that first-party data, right? And a lot of that is coming from feeds, Feedonomics, et cetera. A lot of it is coming through pixels, through your tagging that you have on your site to making sure that it's complete, that it's dynamic. But a lot of this, really the core of like what is fueling this AI is that data.
Amazing. Yeah, we went on our side, we've been in literally our name is Feedonomics. So like, obviously we deal with product feeds. And we're moving more towards data orchestration as a word. And there was a minute there when all this AI stuff was coming out, they're like, man, are we going to be irrelevant? Do we even need this stuff? Because AI is going to be able to produce shopping results kind of, I mean, it feels like almost from magic, right? Out of thin air, it's just giving you these incredible results. But of course, it's not magic. And like Greg's saying, ultimately, the AI's results are only as good as its data inputs. And so what we're seeing is actually that your data, both on your website, and also on all of your media channels, which of course is powered by your product data that you're sending it, that's what the AI is using to serve up results. It's not a magical genie. It's literally leveraging your data that you're putting out into the internet. And so if you get lazy about that and you just say, you know, Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever will figure it out for my website, and you stop feeding good quality data, you don't have what I would call a data orchestration strategy, to be really buzzy about it, you're going to lose. You're going to lose to brands that are doing this really well. And even if you're not directly feeding to Perplexity or ChatGPT, which, by the way, all of them have a feeds coming soon section, so they're all going to start accepting product quality data because they know they need this input, effectively, the first-party data coming in, because they want to give you the best results. Just like Google Search wants to give you the best results, that's why they accept product feeds back in the day. The AIs are no different, and Gemini is going to have access to all of that stuff that you're sending Google Shopping. So we have a few slides to give a visual. We used to have a very like linear view of data, like your data kind of starts at your e-com platform and it goes to your channel, and that's like this very like linear line of where your data goes. We have redesigned this slide to, I think, be much more representative of what's actually happening, whereas it's actually this kind of virtuous cycle that's happening. And like Greg said, everything on the left is your inputs, right? Your signal that you're getting from e-com, your data, your raw data that you're getting from ERP and from PIM. You're sending that off through potentially a partner like Feedonomics to all of your different channels, and that could be Google Shopping, it could be Perplexity, it could be Amazon. It could even be branded storefronts like Shopify stores, BigCommerce stores, Magento stores. It could be your storefront. And then you want to capture all of that juicy signal with analytics tools like Triple to figure out what's actually happening, what's actually working. And then, if you're really good, you can pipe all of that performance and analytics data back into your systems and back into your feed to now inform and change your channel strategy. And so ideally, those things are our feedback loop. That's what we want to create. So what's happening here is you're getting effectively multi-signal intelligence. And historically, again, the only thing that would kind of feed your strategy was maybe some site traffic stuff and maybe some channel performance. But now, like we've been talking about, you also have the ability to give inputs on your brand style, your voice, potentially LLM learning. With Feedo, we have thousands of brands on our platform that we can leverage all that data and pipe it in. And Greg, if I can tee you up for another question.
Yeah, please.
Google has more data than anyone. And I imagine, we're sitting here with a couple of thousand brands. Google has access to all of this, especially in the e-com world, all of this brand data, all of this sales data, all this conversion data. What are some of the types of tools and data that merchants are going to have access to from Google's perspective?
So I'd say one thing that I'll take this moment to give a shout out for Google Marketing Live is actually next week. I was able to get a pre-brief of some of the content being released at Google Marketing Live, and it is literally a game changer. I've been at Google for 12 years now, and I have never been more excited about what's going to be released next week. So definitely tune in. There's going to be some really exciting stuff released there. But a lot of it is really how are brands able to use our data, our signals to activate AI to help your businesses grow and to help your businesses win. So a lot of that is going to be around kind of do we have the right signals coming in, and those signals are what's happening on your site. Those signals are what's happening across kind of your existing customer base within your CRMs. A lot of it has to do with what's happening in terms of your products and your sourcing. Do you have the right inventory, et cetera? And we're able to pull in that data and then provide some really rich recommendations based on that. A lot of that is going to be pulled in through feeds like Feedonomics. And I think what's really exciting is when we start to think about taking a quick step back, I think the 4 buckets of AI that I kind of like to think about are, 1, there is kind of natural language processing. 2, there is robotics. Side note, I actually took a Waymo for the first time this morning, which blew my mind. So that was just a real moment for me. I think the third one is machine learning, which is mostly what we've been talking about today, right? How do we actually allow machines to kind of make analytics decisions and inform what we should be doing with our businesses. And then there's generative AI. And generative AI, I think, is something that we're all super, super excited about. Is maybe a little bit more of the sexy AI, if you will, in terms of what can we create with some of this data and some of these inputs. And that's a lot of what's going to be talked about as well coming with Google Marketing Live. And a lot of that is going to be based on the signals of the product data that's coming through businesses, a lot of it through feeds.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So speaking of generative, the word generative literally means to generate, right? And historically, we have at least been in the space of connecting systems, right? We talked a lot about your source data. That could be literally system level ERP, PIM data, et cetera. And then, of course, you've got your channels, which Google, Meta, TikTok, all of these other destinations that you want to send data to, and we're sort of acting as a bridge in between. But more and more brands have been asking us, hey, can you actually help us generate content from scratch? Because potentially, I was talking to, is Chloe still here from Girlfriend? I don't know if Chloe's still in the house. I don't see her. Anyway, we were talking earlier. She's been selling a lot on Amazon specifically. And Amazon requires a white background, very similar to a Google Shopping image. And now, all of a sudden, she's thinking about exploring TikTok Shop. That's a much more lifestyle image-driven thing. And so while it would be fairly easy probably for Chloe to provide hey, here are the brand guidelines. Here's what my brand's about. It's fun, it's engaging, it's informative, right? All those kind of stylistic things that we saw earlier. It may not be easy to generate a whole bunch of lifestyle descriptions. And so now, tools like Feedonomics are going to be able to do this. Hey, I just have this product title, but I've given you all my brand guidelines. Please write me a description from scratch. I cannot tell you how many retailers especially will get some gigantic feed from a manufacturer with 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 products. And they'll have UPCs, they'll have titles, maybe they'll have some bullets around material or color or some of the basics. no beautiful descriptions. And so historically, we've had to say, good luck, please hire a copywriting agency, here are some recommendations. Now, with generative AI, we can generate it. The same thing is now true for images. So that white background image that we talked about earlier for an Amazon or Google Shopping, now we could say, hey, take that exact same image, and I want lifestyle images of a woman walking down a cobblestone street at a coffee shop, maybe with friends, et cetera. And Greg, so we're talking about creating images. Where do you see the future of image creation going?
Well, first of all, I think this is just super cool to even acknowledge that we're here today, right? Like today, we are able to put a product into a lifestyle image, and also we're going to be able to use the signals that we potentially know about the consumer that you're trying to sell to. So like what you're looking at here is a woman holding this bag, right? What if we knew based on the consumer doing the search that it's actually a man doing the search, and we actually automatically in real time changed it to a man in the lifestyle image holding the bag, right? We're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to make these personalized images like really specific, and a lot of that's going to be based on still the data that we have and what we know about your products and what we know about the consumers that are doing the searches. And then taking that even a step further of, I think, where we're going to go next, and honestly, I think this is the very, very near future, is like, can we actually take these lifestyle images, these products, and create videos with them, right? So generative AI to actually create videos to put into your marketing. And so I think that's something that we're working on and is coming very, very soon. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, because you can imagine from literally a PIM or an ERP and an e-com platform going like, cool, I want to advertise on Google Shopping or TikTok and I don't have the images. Boom, we've created the images. That's working really well. Man, it would be so cool to advertise on YouTube. Boom, now I've got a video. Super, super powerful. And you're doing all of that without like a super expensive studio team that's taking these pictures of an Italian cobblestone street flying around the world to get these images, which literally used to be what people would have to do. I don't know if you guys know the marketplace Farfetch. They're based in the UK, like super, super high-end fashion. I remember meeting with the CMO a couple years ago, and he said that literally every product they listed would get sent in. You would have to send in a physical copy of your product. This is like a beautiful dress or pair of shoes or whatever, and their studio team would take a picture of that for you so that it would generate a high enough quality listing that they felt like they could list that on Farfetch.com. That used to be the process. So incredible resource savings here, we hope. And then the last thing is super boring, but it's a huge pain. And this is effectively what we would call attribute mapping. And so this might be, you can see really great examples here. I won't go through all of them, but effectively you're effectively trying to normalize data. And there might be a few reasons to do that. One is literally a requirement. You need to map data from something like L to large, or the opposite, large to L. Super basic. Or you might, for our marketers in the room, you might have A/B tested a lot of stuff. And while this is an olive bag and that sounds so much better on your website, you're not optimizing for your website. We're now talking about listing this product out into the world so that not only people can find it on Google Shopping, but when that 25-year-old now who's literally only using Gemini to do their product searches, like they're maybe not looking for an olive bag, maybe they're just looking for a handbag, and maybe they know it's green. But like, are they searching for olive? Are they searching for an olive leather handbag made with this, and this? You know it's all those things, and when they're on your website, they can see all that stuff. But a lot of times, data normalization actually is greatly improving performance. So again, attribute mapping. We can do this today, but we're doing, literally our team right now today is doing this with human beings. We go in and we have to write rules that say, if you see the word olive, replace it with green. There's no reason that we should have to solve this with manpower anymore. So pretty cool. Last plug, and then we'll get back to the conversation. If any of you guys want, as part of our service, because we're not really like a software platform traditionally, we're more of a managed service. If any of you guys want to say, what is the state of my data? What recommendations would you make? This QR code will bring you to our feed audit page, and basically all we need is just a download of whatever data is in your GMC, your Google Merchant Center, or your Facebook feed, or whatever. Load it in there, and we'll come back with here's how we might recommend you fix your stuff. Totally free, up to you guys, as a thanks for coming. But so Greg, I want to hear a little bit more about, so we've talked about how product data is sort of informing these AIs. Mm-hmm. What is your perspective on how, if I'm new to all of this stuff as a merchant, how should I think about making sure that, if I'm going to say data orchestration or AI data strategy, what are some of the things I should be thinking about to optimize this from the channel's perspective?
Yeah, fantastic question. I would say that it goes back to a lot of kind of what has already been discussed in the sessions prior to ours. And I think one thing that AJ mentioned in the keynote in the first session this morning is that like data is really the fuel that is driving AI agents, that is driving Moby, that is driving a lot of the AI activations. I don't know, I caught it, I'm biased obviously, but he mentioned two data sources that were Google related in his keynote. He mentioned GA4, he mentioned Gemini, right? He mentioned other data sources as well. But it's really important to understand that like all of this really cool stuff that AI agents are able to do and all of this amazing analysis that they're able to do, it really comes down to the quality of those outputs comes down to the quality of the data inputs. Right? And so this is where, it gets into maybe the boring stuff, as Colin was saying. But like, honestly, I think where we need to kind of wrap our heads around is like, what is our role? What is the human role going to be here going forward in terms of the kind of machine-human partnership with AI going forward? I think AI has been demonstrated a lot today. It's going to be able to do a lot of this strategic analysis. It's going to be able to do a lot of this business analytics so much quicker and at such a higher volume than like we can do as humans. But what it's not going to be able to do is necessarily diagnose, hey, if it's giving you wrong information, why? Right? And that's where us as humans, are going to have to step in and really be kind of the data managers, if you will, around like, hey, is the right data informing these AIs, these chatbots, et cetera? Is the right data, is it complete data? Is for some reason we're missing some data that actually should be involved and that should be making decisions based on, or maybe for some reason a pixel broke or a tag broke, and all of a sudden it sends kind of these decisions in the wrong direction, right? Or maybe it stops optimizing to what we've established as our business goals, and that's where I think that human managers of this data is going to be really important, and we're going to have to be kind of thinking about and changing our kind of like what is our role here and what is our day-to-day in terms of like how are we kind of providing the guardrails, if you will, on AI to make sure that it doesn't go off in the wrong directions.
Which maybe is an interesting thing to lean into a little bit. Greg and I were talking earlier about like, okay, yeah, we get it. It's kind of like SEO for channel is effectively what high quality product data means. But like, how do you know that it's working? Mm-hmm. How do you track some of this stuff? And we were talking a little bit about just the importance of the conversion pixel to be super tactical with it. But like, how do you, I would love to ask you more about that. Like, how do we make sure as brands that when we've set all this stuff up and we get it in theory, that we can actually report on this stuff? Like, how do we get the data back into tools like Triple Whale so that we can actually track this stuff and make sure that we're getting the results that we think we should get?
Yeah, great tee up. And maybe I'll ask the audience quickly, just raise your hands if you've gotten a request, say in the past couple months, to change one of your pixels, whether that's a Shopify pixel, or whether that's a Triple Whale pixel, a Google pixel, a Meta pixel. I've seen a lot of people raise their hands, right? What happens when you get those requests? You roll your eyes. Pretty much every time. I see a lot of nodding. Right? Like, yeah. But here's the thing. Going forward, that is actually going to be the most important thing that we can do to fuel AI and to fuel these AI agents. We need to make sure that these pixels and these tags are updated as quickly as possible. So we're making sure that they are sending the right data and complete data right into Triple Whale, into Google, into Gemini, into ChatGPT, wherever it's going. But when we aren't updating those tags and we're rolling our eyes or we're dragging our feet, oh, we don't actually have to do this until 2 months from now, so I'm not going to do it now, you're just hurting your businesses, right? Because you're operating on incomplete data, right? And so I think it's just a mindset change of like, as an organization, we should be we all should be thinking about, okay, like data fidelity and tag fidelity is now actually the most important thing going forward to be able to leverage AI and these AI agents.
Totally. Yeah, so starting with, like you said, your conversion, your pixel, like make sure you can actually set up tracking, then all of the stuff that you can set up with your actual website to make sure people are having a beautiful experience. Then the next thing you should be thinking about is like just getting data to channel as is. There's a lot of apps in, like a lot of us here I think are on Shopify, but almost any major platform that you have now will have some free app that will just push your data as is out to channel. It's actually not what you want to do. That is literally, if you just think of like, we call it a dumb pipe, you're just sending, like if you have a really customized, we'll go back to our olive green handbag. If you send like olive let's say it was the Olive 2025 Arcadia. That was the name of your handbag, and you push that. That doesn't mean anything to a channel, to someone who's searching. And so you want to actually think about what is the data, like how do I want my data to appear at each different interface? With the customer on the website, the Arcadia 2025 is a really cool name, and you've already interacted with the category, and I'm already looking for a handbag, and I already know that I want olive, and now I'm just looking through the beautiful lifestyle images, and the Arcadia 2025 sounds kind of sexy, and so I'm going to buy it. Right? That's a really cool experience. But on Google or on Perplexity or on ChatGPT or on any of these other channels, I need to know kind of the basics so that when I'm searching for a handbag for my event that's coming up or whatever, the LLM or the channel or whatever I'm using actually knows how to display that data properly. So when you're thinking about a data orchestration strategy, to Greg's point, first and foremost, you have to figure out, okay, am I prepared to actually accept, can I actually track the conversion data? Second of all, how do I want my data to appear on all these channels? And now with AI, you can actually help solve that. So if you know you want lifestyle images for TikTok, and you want maybe a white background for Amazon, and you want all of that stuff to be integrated for you, all of that can be facilitated with AI. And then the last part is, what is your attribution system? And whether that is a triple whale or another analytics tool, how are you capturing that? And then how are you feeding that back into your data orchestration strategy so that you're not just, like if you're just sending the data as is and you're tracking results, but you're not piping it back in, you're not necessarily changing your strategy. And so what we're seeing all of the largest brands in the world, so typically our customer base would be anywhere from like $1 million a year in GMV all the way up to the biggest companies in the world that you've heard of. That's our customer base for the most part. And the biggest, most successful companies are doing this really well. They're saying, how do I get conversions, pipe it out to my channel, capture that performance data, bring it back, and then re-inform what I'm pushing out? Because you could imagine, this is a real example from a little while ago, there was a big sports retailer that was selling a bunch of volleyball goods. And that was like a big category for them was volleyball. And a keyword that was converting over and over and over again that they eventually captured and then fed back in was the word beach for beach volleyball. But that was not obvious because they had described their product perfectly. It was a Wilson leather professional, whatever, but they're missing the word beach. And once you add that word in, now you have effectively fed from channel data, you have now fed in the key converting search term to your actual strategy.
Yeah, and I want to also just kind of another example, which I see all the time across advertisers I work with, is that, to Colin's point, like there is data that is going into Triple Whale, right, where it's saying, okay, like we are able to look at attribution in a very, very granular way, which is fantastic, and we're making business decisions based on that, right? But then time and time again, I consult on these businesses where they say, hey, Triple Whale is showing me this information, and Google Ads is showing me completely different information in terms of return on ad spend or in terms of a CPA, et cetera. And then when I start to ask them questions, I realize, the Triple Whale attribution is set up maybe for new customer acquisition, right? And you're still optimizing to ROAS within Google Ads, regardless if it's new customer or not, right? So obviously, those two things are not going after the same goals. So you need to be informing Google Ads that hey, this is actually what we want to be optimizing towards, and this is what we're making business decisions based on within Triple Whale. And you can now set up Google Ads and Meta and TikTok and AppLovin and all of them based on those goals that you want to be optimizing to, and you're making business decisions based on within Triple Whale. But time and time again, Google Ads has been around for so long that you have legacy kind of Google Ads accounts that aren't being managed properly because people have kind of pivoted their attention to optimizing things in Triple Whale, but it needs to be optimized in both, and they need to be talking to each other. So that's one thing that I think is really important, a main takeaway for me and hopefully for all of you here is that we need to be making sure that these systems are optimizing for the same things.
Yeah, super important. And so as brands are thinking about all this stuff, one of the things we were talking about is we're definitely seeing some brands build their own AI. And again, that would probably be without naming names, big, large cosmetic companies, big, large shoe companies are thinking about oh my God, we have so much data. How do we build our own AI with our own data that we can then leverage for insights? But I think for most of us in the room, that may or may not be in the cards. And so, the build versus buy conversation is really interesting here. But if what we're hearing from Greg, so obviously Google's building its own AI tools, we're building our own AI tools to help facilitate this. How would you think about, from a brand or a merchant's perspective, Greg, how do I think about, should I build part of this? Do I buy all of it? Is there a balance there? What should I be doing with my own data, if anything, in relation to AI?
Yeah, It's a great question. I would say that it depends on the business goals of the company, right? I think if you're a retailer, which I think a lot of the folks in the room are, and you are looking to sell products, like partnering is absolutely the way to go, leveraging others' AIs. If you consider yourself more like you want to be a tech company, like maybe you do need to invest in building, but it's obviously going to be very expensive, and it's something that is going to take a lot of funding before you see the returns on that. So ultimately, it depends on what your goals for your business are. But I would say that there are just tons of really good partners that like Feedonomics, Google, Triple Whale, that are like building these things so quickly and making them accessible to companies, a lot of times free, right? And a lot of times maybe for quite inexpensive. And that is, especially as you're growing a business, where it's going to be the most cost effective and efficient for you. But importantly, like you do need to develop or hire the skill set to be able to manage your company's data in order to take advantage of these partners, right? So you can't completely rely on partners in terms of AI. Like you do need to have this internal kind of skill sets to be able to understand like the passbacks, understand the data flows, and understand how we can be providing those guardrails on what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the best quotes I heard early on about AI is your job is not going to be taken by AI, it's going to be taken by someone who knows how to use AI. And then this is, I think, a fairly Shopify-friendly room. Shopify's CEO just sent out an email to the whole company basically saying, it is now my expectation that using AI is reflexive, it's imperative, and before you hire somebody new, you should be able to explain to your manager, including myself, why that job cannot be done by AI. And so that's like the tone that we're setting in our own industry from one of the best in the game in Shopify. That is the current message. Now, whether you agree with that for your own business is totally up to you, but that's coming from Shopify, so people are going to pay attention. And so I think, to Greg's point, whether or not, for many of us, we're not going to be building something in-house. We are because we're a data company. Greg's obviously working for Google. They're building something. For you guys as your brands, retailers, agencies in the room, you probably don't have to build one, but to Greg's point, you should absolutely be hiring someone who does. And I can't tell you, I was fortunate enough to hire a mid-market sales director for our sales team who's very, very invested. Matt Dornfeld is his name. Go follow him on LinkedIn. He's posting about this stuff all the time. I can't tell you how many internal processes he's shifted in 4 months just using AI. And that's like all internal processes to us, but it's stuff like upload the recent client call you had and tell me how I could improve it, and it'll give you 10 points. I would like you to analyze 15 different recordings that I've done and tell me where I'm doing well, where I'm not doing well. It's also just basic stuff like, hey, I don't want to load all this stuff into my CRM. Can you please give me a formatted note from my call transcript that I can just copy paste into HubSpot? All of that kind of stuff is saving just our own sales team internally so much time and giving us so much insight. And that's not even talking about publicly facing products. That's just internal processes that have made such a big difference. So I think the TLDR, if I can sum up and then please add, is so what should we be thinking about as brands and retailers? So first and foremost, we need to make sure that our website experience is crisp and we can actually get data out of it. We can actually use things like our conversions API or Pixel. And second, we can get that data into our analytics platform. That's thing one. Thing two is make sure that you have, whether it's Feedonomics or some other tool, you have a way to get that product data in different forms out to your different channels, and it should probably look different by channel. Like if you're sending the same data to your website as you are to Google, as you are to TikTok, as you are to Amazon, you're probably doing it wrong. You want different data by channel, and you need some ability to do that. Third, you want some ability to get data back from channel. That's usually either Signal from Google or like an order file from Amazon. You need a way to pipe that data back into not just your OMS and your ERP, but probably also your analytics tool so that you can get amazing dashboards like what you saw from Triple Whale this morning. And then finally, you need humans that are smart enough to orchestrate all of this stuff and feed that performance data back that you've just worked so hard to capture back into your channel strategy so that you're adjusting spend, which channels you're listing on, and potentially even which products you're selling.
Yeah.
You add anything to that?
I think you nailed the summary. I would say for anyone who's sitting there like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, what do I do next? I will plug that we are releasing next week as part of GML, like a AI essentials checklist, right? About like, hey, this is actually the most important things you should be thinking about and what you should be acting on for your business. So that's coming. Again, check out Google Marketing Live. It's all going to be announced there.
Amazing. Well, we have a whopping 2 minutes and 5 seconds for questions if anyone's got something. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Pavan. Could you speak to what Feedonomics provides versus Meta's out-of-the-box CAPI conversions API in terms of improving Meta performance and efficiency?
Love that question. Yeah. So you're kind of just different stages of the puzzle, basically. So Meta's CAPI API is effectively feeding between your website. So our parent company is BigCommerce. So BigCommerce has finally developed a CAPI between them and Meta. So you can now track performance between what's actually happening on the website and the ad. How are those two interrelating? What Feedonomics is doing is we're taking that data from website and listing it on Meta in the first place, and effectively optimizing all of your product data so that it actually performs. Interestingly, we've always been in the position of we actually don't know how performance is going, which is why partnerships with insights and attribution companies are so critical, because to your point, I can give you all the data strategy in the world, but you actually need another tool like a triple whale or something else that's giving you the attribution to say okay, cool, my data orchestration strategy is good, I got all my products listed, Feedonomics can help you bring that order data back into your ERP or your OMS, and now we need an attribution dashboard to make sure, hey, this is actually working, and obviously the CAPI is essential to doing that, or you just won't get the data. So I don't know if I could say versus CAPI, because I don't think it's an either or. You want CAPI, and then you also want us, because we're doing the listings. CAPI is doing the signal, effectively. But our average lift across all merchants, again, because we have $1 million businesses that could double in size from using us, and then we have your Nikes of the world that might get a 3% lift and be ecstatic, is about 15% overall on average. I think we have maybe one more question, and then we're at time. If anybody's got something. Cool. Well, thank you all so much. And Triple Whale, thank you for hosting. Really a pleasure to be here with y'all. And Greg, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. All right.